What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show. I missed my cue, but now I'm back in the game and we are ready to roll here today on a rare Saturday show that we're doing here with me and my partner here, Ant. Ant, how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, it is different being Saturday, and but it's still going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And this is the thing that's fun about right now is we've got rookie mini camp, or not rookie mini camp. Sorry, rookies reporting to training camp
Right.
week. I mean, this is crazy. It's like time for the season. So I'm really excited for this time. The 49ers put out all the open practice dates. So it's going to be a blast getting out there and getting to see them. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for this portion of the offseason.
Yeah, I am too. You never know what's going to happen. And maybe this will be the 49ers' chance to finally get that elusive sixth Lombardi. But speaking of championships, I'm wearing my Oklahoma City Thunder t-shirt, and it's an old one. It's ratty, and I'm wearing it so that I can't be accused of being a bandwagon fan because I've been following the Thunder ever since they moved from that stupid Seattle city to Oklahoma City. Been following them all the time. So it was a lot of fun to watch them win the NBA championship. Here's to hoping that the 49ers can pull off something crazy like that in 2025.
Yeah, it would be big, and the 49ers got a lot that is going their way when you talk about the schedule, when you talk about the way things are lining up with some of the rest benefits that they're going to have, not facing teams coming off buys. There's a lot going the 49ers way, not to mention the Super Bowl being in Santa Clara. And so there is an opportunity for the 49ers. Now, a lot has to go right. A lot has to go the 49ers way. A lot of these rookies have to hit for the 49ers to have an opportunity. But hey, stranger things have happened. I don't know how many teams, or how many people really thought the Rams were going to win the Super Bowl in 2021 in LA, but that happened. So sometimes you just need a little stroke of luck and a couple of things to go your way. And what they always say in football, you don't know how the ball is going to bounce. Maybe it'll bounce in the 49ers direction. The good thing is there's optimism. And that's always a good way to start the season, with the belief that your team has a chance to go out there and get it done.
Yeah, and speaking of that Rams team that won the Super Bowl, I heard somebody the other day are doing some kind of thing on how the 49ers missed on that Trey Lance, pick, trading away players, trading away draft picks and all that for Trey Lance, and it didn't work out. It just got me thinking, what would have happened if they would have drafted Micah Parsons? So they probably wouldn't have had to trade up. But what if they would have drafted Micah Parsons? They probably win that game against the Rams. I'm guessing they probably beat the Bengals as well in the Super Bowl. And who knows what happens? They probably beat the Chiefs in that last Super Bowl. I mean, these are all what ifs, but it just is interesting to think that how things could have changed. Not to mention they wouldn't have lost all of those draft picks from trading up. And so they could have also got some impact players had they not done that. But hindsight's 2020. I was excited at the time. I really, it wasn't that I was hoping that they would go after Trey Lance. But I really was intrigued by that athletic quarterback that we saw with Steve Young, even Jeff Garcia, and Colin Kaepernick. Brock Purdy's a little bit of that, but I was hoping for something a little closer to Josh Allen. But there's very few Josh Allens out there.
I think that's what Kyle Shanahan was hoping too, that he was going to get Trey Lance being Josh Allen. And then the same sort of thing would have happened, right? If Trey Lance would have hit, the 49ers probably would have beat the Rams. They probably would have went to the Super Bowl and beat the Bengals. More than likely, they would have outdueled Kansas City, because if he becomes Josh Allen, that's just like a different level of player, a guy that can carry a team on his back. And that's a different type of, top echelon type quarterback. And so, yeah, I mean, things could have been different. The 49ers took a big swing and they didn't hit on it. And now they're having to regroup. And I think they've done a pretty good job of regrouping and overcoming that. And a lot of that has to go into the scouting department, locating a guy like Brock Purdy that could come in and step in and be able to get the job done. But that was a huge swing and miss. I don't mind swings and misses sometimes, because every once in a while you're going to have a swing and a hit. And when you do, it's going to result in some really big opportunities for your football team. So you're right. They could have had Micah Parsons. I don't know if that would have been the pick with some of his off the field issues and the way the 49ers value, the guys who don't get in trouble. I think something very similar to that this year with Mike Green. I know it was different things. I don't want to tie Micah Parsons to anything like that, but I'm just saying the 49ers do value off the field issues a lot. So I think that would have been interesting, but you're right. A player at that caliber, at that position, could have made a huge impact.
Yeah, Micah Parsons on one side, Nick Bosa on the other. Man, that would have been pretty impressive. All right, we're gonna do some burning questions, some burning 49ers training camp questions, and some bold takes. But first, I wanted to get your thoughts on what Matt Mayoko said this week when asked about Brandon Ayuk. He said that he's coming along really well, that he's ahead of schedule, which seems to be something that they always say. That probably is coming from the 49ers, I'm guessing. But he said that maybe Ayuk could be ready week 1. That just does not seem possible, nor does it seem smart to me. What did you think when you heard that?
I was surprised. I had kind of heard some whispers here and there that Ayuk was ahead of schedule and maybe could be ready towards the beginning of the season. But I thought that pretty much everything else had been, hey, it's probably going to be sometime in the middle of the season, and that he would come back sometime at the end of October, maybe as far as the end of November, seemed the most likely, kind of the Drake Greenlaw timeline from last season, that seemed the most likely. And then Matt Mayoko, who he does have his ear to the ground, he does know people in the building better than probably anybody. He says, hey, there's a chance he could be ready week 1. But even Matt Mayoko kind of stressed that week 1 is still a lofty expectation for Brandon Ayuk. But it just putting it out there means there's a chance Ayuk could be ready earlier on in the season than later in the season. And that could pay huge dividends. The 49ers have a tough part of their schedule coming there in that, week 4 through 8 period for this football team. So Brandon Ayuk coming back off the PUP list in week 5 or something like that, that could be huge for the San Francisco 49ers. So I thought that was very interesting that came out from Matt Mayoko. And I think it does go a long way to show how hard Brandon Ayuk has been working to get back. And he's going to be an important fixture to this 49ers team. I'm not talking about as much middle of the season, but if he can play, from week, let's say even 8 on, he could be ready for a playoff push where now he's got his legs back underneath him and he could do something. So that could make a huge impact on this team.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into this, the burning questions and the bold takes that go along with it. So the first question that we're asking is, which young wide receiver will step up? Obviously, Ayuk's probably not going to be ready early in the season. Demarcus Robinson most likely going to be suspended for a few games. We can assume that Ricky Pearsall is going to build off of what he did last year. At least that's the hope. I mean, last year, he finished the season, his last 2 games of the season, 14 catches on 18 targets for 210 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So if he can build off that, and if Juwan Jennings can come back and do what he's done, then it may not be too bad until Robinson and Ayuk return. The question is, which young receiver is going to step up? So there's Jacob Cowing, who had 1 catch last season and seemed to be maybe a little lost and maybe was in the doghouse at times just because he wasn't quite ready. There are other ones like rookies, Jordan Watkins, Junior Bergen, Isaiah Nayer, who I think is really a long shot. And I'm intrigued by the 3rd year. Well, I guess maybe he's going into his 4th year. Well, actually, I'd have to go back and look. But Malik Knowles, I think that he's going to be an intriguing guy because he hasn't played in an NFL game yet in his career, but he was a dynamic player in college. So I'm gonna give you my bold prediction, and then I'm gonna let you respond in whatever way you want to. I believe that Jacob Cowing is going to have a better sophomore season. I mean, he couldn't have much of a worse one with only 1 catch, but I think that he's going to actually add some real speed to the 49ers offense and Kyle Shanahan can utilize that speed, then we could be looking at a guy who can be a difference maker on offense. So that would be the first burning question is which young receiver is going to step up. I think it's going to be hard for Jordan Watkins because Kyle's really hard on rookies, and this is not the easiest offense. But I think that Jacob Cowing has to be the leader in the clubhouse to be that young guy to step up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Jacob Cowing would have the best opportunity, especially being in the system for a full year. He now understands the nuances. He understands where he's supposed to line up, when he's supposed to go in motion. And now he can start focusing on beating coverage and understanding where he needs to sit down or those times that he needs to win in man coverage. And the 49ers can use him in the slot and create that natural separation for him, which will allow him to get out there and use his natural speed and not have to use physicality, which he's not really built for. But he is been putting in the work. A lot of people have seen his body and they say he looks like he's put on 10 pounds. And that is going to go a long ways to determine how he's going to play this season. But I think Jacob Cowing's the most likely. I do think Jordan Watkins is going to have more opportunity than a lot of rookies have had within the 49ers offense. Probably more so like the Ronnie Bell, where we're going to see him a little bit during the preseason. And there were some highlight plays for Ronnie Bell. His whole mistake and problem with him was he couldn't catch the ball consistently. As long as Jordan Watkins can do that, he's more athletic. He's more talented. There's a lot of things that he's a lot better at than Ronnie Bell. So I think that both of them can make an impact. I do think Jacob Cowing is the one that they're going to tap to do the things that you talked about, especially some of the stuff over the middle of the field, and then the vertical stretch down the field to be able to create some opportunities for some of these other receivers over the middle. Pearsall, Jennings, Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey all want to operate in that zone. So you've got to get those safeties to be able to fear you going vertical, so that way it will open up that middle window. Watkins and Cowing do that. I think those guys are very exciting. And then I will say this, Malik Knowles, you're right. He is going into his third season. You were correct initially. He's going to be an interesting guy because he's got versatility. He's still a bigger body. He's going to be fun. And I just want to see what Nair does. I don't have any expectations for him at this point, but a guy that big that can run that fast, that's going to be fun to see him kind of match up with some of the 49ers cornerbacks, especially some of the smaller guys. Can you imagine him matched up on the outside against a Jacob Robinson or, one of these guys like a Chase Lucas? That is going to be fun to see how they compete down the field. So I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah, great point. All right, a second question. When will Alfred Collins sign his rookie deal? So Collins, along with almost the entire second round class, has yet to sign their deal. There were the first two picks of the second round, Jaden Higgins and Carson. I don't even know how to say this guy's name. Swessinger. All right. So these two guys received fully guaranteed contracts, which I think I haven't heard of that being something before for second rounders. Maybe it's happened, but I really have never heard that. And so what's that's like holding everybody else up from what I understand. And so I don't really know that Alfred Collins is doing anything wrong. He's just trying to get what the others are right before him and maybe even those that are going to come after him are getting. And so when's he going to sign? So the rookies report on Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I seriously doubt this is going to be done before they report. My hope is that it's done sometime soon after that, because he already came in and here's my prediction or my bold take is that I think that Alfred Collins is going to have a minimal impact in 2025. And the reason being is that he's already been dealing with a calf injury. And if he misses, let's say he misses a good portion of training camp. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen. And if he doesn't miss very much time at all, then my prediction will hopefully be wrong. But if he misses, so if he's already dealing with an injury, misses a good portion of training camp, I just think it's going to be tough for him to make much of an impact this year. So when do you think he's going to sign the deal? And what do you think about my bold take? And do you have one of your own regarding Alfred Collins?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be once training camp begins. I think that there needs to be some sort of, line in the sand where people have to make a decision. And you're right. It's not Alfred Collins' fault. There's players in front of him that are going to try to make a decision on how much guaranteed money. This is the first time that the NFL has went into the second round with fully guaranteed contracts for pick, 33 and 34. And Nick Emanwari is pick number 35. I can guarantee you he thought he was a first round talent. He's going to be wanting fully guaranteed contract from Seattle Seahawks. He's not going to be the one that blinks in that situation. So it's going to have to be one of those guys in front of Alfred Collins that does blink. Once one of them does, this is going to be easy to figure out because whatever percentage they get of guaranteed money, which will probably be over 80% guaranteed money anyways, and then it's going to filter down and then Alfred Collins will get his deal. I believe that once these players have to start getting in there for training camp, that teams and the players are going to come to an agreement and make some sort of an agreement on what this is going to be. For some, it could be 90% guaranteed. For others, 80%. But I think they're going to get a deal done then. And then when Alfred Collins gets on the field, I have zero worries about him. I think Alfred Collins is set to have a big year. In fact, I have predicted that I think Alfred Collins is going to make the biggest impact of any rookie that the 49ers drafted. So your take and my take are on the opposite ends of the spectrum here. He's the one I've picked, and a lot of people are saying it's Mikael Williams, which, hey, it could be Mikael Williams. I just feel with Alfred Collins' size, speed, and athleticism from the inside, his versatility to play the one tech or play the three tech, that he has an opportunity to really produce on the field. And the thing is, the 49ers have been looking for pass rushers. They drafted Alfred Collins to stop the run. Even if he stops the run at the elite level that he's capable of, that will be such a big impact on the 49ers. It will allow them to have the opportunity on third down to rush the passer with guys like Bryce Huff and Yetur Gross-Matos. But I also believe that he's going to be a very good pass rusher because I do think that because of the scheme he ran at Texas, he wasn't allowed that opportunity to just go get after the quarterback. That wasn't something he did. In San Francisco, it's a different scheme, a different opportunity, and I think he's going to seize that opportunity, and I think he's going to have a good impact in year one, and I think his career is going to be huge. I do think that he's going to be a big-time player for the 49ers.
Yeah, and I definitely hope that you're right on this. I know that you're big on him because we've talked about this, and I remember you saying that you predicted that he was going to have the biggest impact of all the rookies for the 49ers this season. My concern comes with the calf injury and then the relation to how much time he misses. If he comes into camp healthy, and if they get this worked out real soon, as in, by the time the veterans come in and they all take the field, then I'm not concerned at all. But if he misses the majority of training camp, I mean, I doubt that'll happen. But if it does, then I become concerned about him not being ready by the time the season starts and having some kind of injury because he hasn't been practicing. Those things always concern me. We've seen that with holdouts plenty of times over the years. So, but hopefully you're right and they'll get this done soon. So do you think by the time they take the field with the veterans that he'll be signed and ready?
I think it's going to happen within the first week of training camp. I don't know if it'll happen, by the 23rd when they all lace him up for the first time to get out there. But I'm guessing by the time they get into pads that there's going to be somebody that blinks, right? So a second round pick that's looking for an opportunity to get out there and start and doesn't want to hold out any longer. I think somebody turns and crosses that line, and once they do, then everybody else will kind of fall in line. So I do think one of those players will trip in front of him. Luckily, he's 43, so there's some guys that can make a change there. But which one, I don't know. So that's be my guess. You got to give it a couple of weeks, and then I think it probably gets done.
Yeah, let's just hope that he doesn't pull a Michael Crabtree, which he ain't going to do that because he's not Michael Crabtree. So, all right. Third question. Which linebacker will play next to Fred Warner? Obviously, Dre Greenlaw is gone. D. Winters has been the front runner, but the 49ers drafted Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State. I I've said this before, so this isn't going to be anything new to you or to those that have heard it, who've been listening to us. I predict that somewhere around midseason that Nick Martin overtakes D Winters. I think that D Winters will probably start the season in that spot next to Fred Warner, but that Nick Martin's going to take him over. And one of the reasons, well, for one thing, I think that he's more talented, but another reason is that he was drafted by Robert Saleh and D Winters wasn't. And I think that could be a factor because Saleh's coming in with his vision for what he wants his defense to look like. And I think that Nick Martin may fit that better than D Winters. What do you think?
I think it's going to be D Winters. I think D Winters is further along. I mean, this guy's been in the NFL now for 2 seasons, and I understand that he's not a Robert Saleh guy. He's been playing for Steve Wilkes. He played for Nick Sorensen, and how much did they do for his career? I mean, probably not a whole lot, especially last year. It was very convoluted. But this might not be a Robert Saleh guy, but this is a 49ers guy. This was a John Lynch guy. John Lynch went and watched TCU a ton. And so they still believe in D Winters. And it was last year that they were very high on him coming into the season, the way that he had reshaped his body, the way that he had got himself prepared for the season. And I did feel like he made some strides in a positive direction in a season where there wasn't very many positives. So I think he's going to come in again with more confidence. He did play really well in coverage last year, and he had over a 70 grade. And when you have a 70 grade, and that's on 70% of the snaps that you're going to be playing, that's significant. Where he does have to get better is he has to stop the run a little bit better. He has to make sure he gets up there. One of the problems with him was last year tackling was a little bit erratic. That's number one. Number two, he was taking on more offensive linemen physically than trying to avoid them. I think that gets fixed early with Robert Saleh. I think he makes sure that he's in the right spots at the right time to make the plays. I think that's going to help him. I do, however, agree with you that during the season, Nick Martin is going to get more and more opportunities because I do think as he acclimates to this offense, he is a better run stopper. So there's some things that he does well that are a little bit better than D Winters. How quickly will he become a coverage guy as good as Winters? I don't know. But I think that we can see those snaps sort of be split a little bit between the two. And maybe as we get, to the middle to the late part of the season, maybe Nick Martin is getting a lot of those nickel snaps as well. And we're seeing more of maybe a 60-40 split between the two and giving opportunities to the young guy because the eventual thing the 49ers want is Nick Martin playing next to Fred Warner. But I do think that D Winters is going to get the first shot. And it's his opportunity to say, no, Rook, you're not taking my job. But he's got to go prove it in camp. But I think that's kind of how I see it going.
Yeah. I definitely agree that D Winters is going to be the guy at the beginning. Okay, the next question, number 4, who will play nickel corner? So we've already discussed a few weeks ago that Diamador Lenore says that he's going to be on the outside this season. We'll see what his coaches say, but he believes he's going to be on the outside. They brought in veteran Trey Brown and drafted Upton Stout to play nickel so that they could keep Lenore on the outside. But Brown hasn't been overly impressive in his NFL career so far, and we know that nickel corner is a tough position for rookies to play. So either one of those guys steps up and they play that nickel spot, or the 49ers are going to have to move Diamador Lenore back inside and find somebody else to play on the outside. And as far as who would play on the outside, I don't know if that guy is on the team. So here's my bold take. I think that Brown is going to start the season at nickel. I don't think that he's going to be that. And so if Stout can step in as a rookie and do it, then I think that he will. If not, I think that the 49ers may bring in somebody from the outside who can play on the outside, and they're going to move Lenore back in. What do you think about this question?
Yeah, I think that this one is a linchpin to how good the 49ers defense is going to be because we've seen the 49ers defense be really good when nickel corners figured out. When K1 Williams was there, it played really well. When Jimmy Ward was playing nickel, it was a lot better. So when they have a solid nickel corner, it goes well. I think that's why they've looked at nickel corner. Now, one thing that I believe is when Robert Saleh took a look at this defense, he decided that the best situation for the 49ers was Lenoir playing outside, because everything they've done and investment-wise has been to find a nickel corner. When John Lynch said Trey Brown is somebody they see as a guy that can move inside, that was something that took everyone by storm, because everyone was kind of thinking maybe he was the third guy outside. But now that he's moving in, it does appear that is what they're trying to do, is find a nickel. You got Trey Brown, you got Upton Stout. They signed Saron Neal. He was another guy that they brought in. They have Chase Lucas. He's a nickel corner. A lot of investment there. Even guys they signed as undrafted free agents have the ability. Jacob Robinson, Derek Canteen, both potential nickel corners. So it looks like they're allowing that to be the investment, knowing that Deommodore Lenoir and Bernardo Green are going to play on the outside. Now, when it comes to Trey Brown and Upton Stout, I believe Upton Stout, and I know that he is smaller in stature, but he does not play that small in stature. In fact, in the process, people were talking about him potentially playing safety in the NFL, right? That Tyrann Mathieu, smaller, undersized safety. Now he's going to play nickel. I think when it comes to stopping the run, I think he's going to do a very good job. Even though he's small, he's an ankle biter. He'll come up there. He'll take you out at the knees. No problems. When it comes to Trey Brown, that's my worry about him. He's not as physical when it comes to stopping the run. He can do it, and that's going to be one of the things he's going to have to prove. But I think you're right when it comes to his ability to cover early. He's going to have a better feel for the 49ers defense playing in a similar scheme during his career. And so the cover three and things like that are going to be easier for him to figure out. Some of the wide receiver nuances, some of the route concepts picking up. He's a little bit further along. But Upton Stout has an advantage, and he can stop the run. And there's so many teams that want to put the 49ers in nickel so they can run the football. So I think this is going to be a really good competition. And I think that when it comes to bold takes, I'm going to go with the young guy. I'm going to go with Upton Stout going out there and winning this job for the 49ers. I see a lot in him. I was a big fan of him during the process. And so I do believe he has a shot. Now, if you tell me that Trey Brown is going to be the starting nickel corner, I wouldn't bat an eye. But I think the young guy's going to go out there and prove it. I think this is one of the young rookies that's going to be able to go out there and get it done. And I like Upton Stout's chances to start at nickel, even though it's very difficult. I think he's going to have a preseason that reminds us of 2022 Sam Womack preseason. That's what I think is going to happen. He's going to make plays, and he's going to shock a lot of people.
Yeah, and he's got that demo attitude and mindset. So I like that. Yeah, I hope that you're right, because I'd love to have the young guy in there. JD in the chat said, we just need backups at cornerback, maybe Luter. Definitely need backups at corner. I'm worried that corner is a little thin for the 49ers. I just don't know what to expect from Darrell Luter Jr.
That's one of the toughest things to figure out, because we really haven't got anything from him on the field. We got a ton of hype. I mean, everyone was super excited when they drafted him. You look at his body style, his length, his athleticism. I mean, this was the guy that was going to take over for Ambry Thomas, because Ambry Thomas wasn't developing into that player. And then we just haven't seen anything since. All we've seen is injuries, which has been a real problem for Darrell Luter Jr. He just hasn't been on the field very much. And also special teams gaffes, unfortunately. And so this is a make or break season for Darrell Luter Jr. And I'm hoping that he comes out there and he plays the potential, because then the 49ers do have an answer on the outside. The 49ers could move Deommodore Lenoir back inside, which I don't think they want to do at all, but they could if they needed to. But it all hinges on Darrell Luter Jr. and maybe a Dallas Flowers, who are the big, long, built for cover 3, cover 4/quarters defense. Those guys are built for it. But the rest of the guys are kind of inside guys. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what we're going to get out of Darrell Luter Jr.
Yeah. All right. So next question. Who will be San Francisco's kicker? Well, Jake Moody was very good in 2024 until he wasn't. We talked about this, that pre-injury, I don't remember the numbers, but he had only missed like one field goal. And he was somewhere in the teens in field goals made. He was kicking very well. After the injury, he was horrible. And so this offseason, the 49ers brought in Greg Joseph, the veteran, to kick, to be part of the kicker competition. So it is going to be fun to watch. I mean, usually watching a kicker competition is like watching paint dry, but this is going to be interesting, because 49ers fans are over Jake Moody. And I wonder where the team is at on this as well. But here's my bold prediction, and it's going to make everybody listening angry. I think that Jake Moody is going to win that competition because he's excellent in practice, and I think that this is going to come down to that. Now, if he starts early in the season and is horrible, then maybe a change is made. But I think that Moody's going to win the job.
I agree with your bold prediction. I do think Jake Moody is going to win this job as well. I think the signing of Joseph kind of illustrated the 49ers want a competition, but they also want Jake Moody to win the competition. And I think that they've done a really good job of building a core group around him, new long snapper, new holder, new punter, to make sure that he was going to feel the most comfortable. And Brant Boyer kind of illustrated that he believed in him when he talked about his draft stock and how everyone thought he was the number one kicker. A lot of it's mindset, and a lot of it is mentality when it comes to Jake Moody. He once had the confidence. So how do you get the confidence back in him? Well, you support him with a cast that believes in him 100%, and Brant Boyer can illustrate that as well. Hey, we've got this. You change your motion. Everything's going to be perfect. All you have to go out there and do is get it done. And so I do think Jake Moody's going to get the job done. How he does during the season is going to be another question, but I think he's going to be lights out for training camp. He's going to be lights out in the preseason. And when we get into the season, it's not going to be for confidence reasons. It's going to be just, can he stay consistent? If he can early, this might snowball into a very good year for Jake Moody. If not, if there's little bumps in the road, it might go off the rocker quick. But I think that during the season, the 49ers will have a quick trigger on Jake Moody. So I do believe that. I think they're going to be ready to pull the trigger if they need to replace him.
Yeah, 100%. All right, next one. Who will be the team's punt returner? So right after the draft, when we talked, I said that that Burgeon, Junior Burgeon, they drafted him primarily as a kick returner, punt returner, and I just didn't think that he would make the roster if that's all he did. But then later, I found out that he played college football with Brant Boyer's son, and that Boyer handpicked Bergen. So at that point, if you remember, I started to change my mind that maybe he will make it after all. It's not that Jacob Cowing was bad. He just, and maybe Kyle Shanahan's philosophy is, hey, just don't screw this up. Because we all remember Kyle Williams, and we've seen other, Ronnie Bell had the yips a couple of years ago. And so I think that a lot of it, maybe that is that mindset that I'd rather have no return, but you don't fumble, than to have the chance to take one back. But I don't know that Brant Boyer has that mindset. And so I think here's my bold prediction. I think that I now believe that Junior Bergen will make the team as the 49ers punt returner. I don't know what they're going to do with kickoff, because this is kind of different. Maybe they'll use him at both. And I also think that he's going to take one back to the house. What do you think?
I like the opportunity of Junior Bergen as a kick/punt returner. I think some of the things that we've seen in college, the vision, it could be huge for the 49ers. And I think that's what they're looking for. I do think that right now, field position is one of the most untalked about things in the process. Is if you can get good field position, your chances of scoring go up immensely. And so I do believe that that's one thing this special teams unit is going to look for, is good field position, and having a good returner plays into that. One thing that could help Junior Bergen a lot in this opportunity to make this football team is the fact Brandon Ayuk is probably going to be out for the first part of the season. And more than likely, Demarcus Robinson is going to be suspended. And now that, he's come to an agreement on what that looks like legally, and his legal things are behind him, now the league can act. And so we'll probably find out sooner rather than later of what that means for Demarcus Robinson. So the 49ers are going to have an opportunity here when it comes to roster to kind of put some different guys on. They could possibly keep a Junior Bergen. Now, the other thing that we've seen the 49ers do is use key veterans to put on the practice squad, so that way they can keep young guys on their current roster. So guys like Russell Gage and Isaiah Hodgins, who don't have to pass through waivers, those are guys that the 49ers could release, sign back to the practice squad, elevate them for the game day, so that way you still have the capable wide receivers for Kyle Shanahan to use and still keep Junior Bergen on your roster. The one thing that's going to make it entirely difficult, though, is if some of the young guys that they have signed step up. If you get an Isaiah Nair who's playing so good that you're afraid to lose him by making him pass through waivers, then yes, that will be a time when maybe Junior Bergen doesn't make the team. But I will say this, if Junior Bergen makes this football team, I do believe he will be a dynamic returner, because that's the only way he's going to make this team, is he has to show up and show out, and that is going to sell everyone on it. That's the only way Kyle Shanahan keeps him on this football team, the 53-man roster. So, yeah, I think your prediction could be right. He will have a shot to get a big-time touchdown if he's on this team, because that's the only way he makes it.
And if he pulls a Ted Ginn in that first game of the season against Seattle and returns a punt and a kickoff for a touchdown, I think he's going to be good to go for the rest of the season. But we can only hope. All right, the next one. Oh, by the way, I wanted to reply to this question from Lowbridge, where he says, "What? No Sunday? Yeah, sorry, I wasn't available tomorrow, so we had to jump in and do it today. So that's on me." All right, next question. Will all the draft picks make the team? Yeah, man, this is a tough one, because usually with the 49ers, no way, especially when with 11 draft picks, there's just no way. Now, they really needed to get younger and faster. And so I think that this year they have a better shot. I think that if somebody doesn't make it, it's going to be one of those 7th rounders, obviously. So either Junior Bergen, Curtis Rourke, or Connor Colby. But Bergen, I already said that he's going to make the team, so I can't go back on that. Curtis Rourke, he's still rehabbing from an injury, so I'm guessing he ends up on IR maybe. So that would leave Connor Colby. I know a lot of people are really high on him. So I'm going to say that Connor Colby isn't going to make it. But the 49ers are going to try and bring him back on the practice squad. And hopefully nobody else grabs him. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I do think that Connor Colby is the most likely of the 49ers draft picks to not make this football team. And part of the reason I believe that is because I do think Curtis Rourke is going to start on the PUP list, like Joe said. I think that that's where he's going to be to start the season. There's no reason to rush him. And I'm not even convinced the 49ers are going to keep 3 quarterbacks on their active roster. I'm not convinced that that's what they're going to do. I think they might need that roster spot. So I think Rourke goes on the PUP list. It makes the most sense. If you ever need him, you could bring him back during the season. But I don't think that's the case. Then you look at Junior Bergen, and we just talked about it, right? The ability to potentially, return. And the 49ers are going to look for field position changes. They're looking for somebody that can make some dynamic plays. And he's a Brant Boyer guy. So he's got more of a chance than Connor Colby. And the reason I think Connor Colby's kind of got his back against the wall is there's no versatility when it comes to position of play. He plays guard, and that's it, right? You look at the other 49ers offensive linemen, and they've got some position versatility. Burford plays guard and tackle. You look at Zakel, he plays center and guard. Matt Hennessy, guard and center. Ben Bartz, center and guard. There's a lot of versatility with those guys, and versatility, when it comes to depth, is more important than somebody that's just a young guard. And we've seen this last year shake out with another young player, and he went on to Carolina because Jacob Kingston didn't have versatility to play center and guard. He was just a guard. And so I do think that that's going to play a big part in this. And so I do think Connor Colby's the most likely to get waived. I will say, I think Chris Foerster likes Connor Colby a lot. I think the 49ers like him a lot and would love to keep him within their ranks. But I think he's going to have to be one of those guys that are going to have to figure out, can they cut a veteran and bring him back eventually? Do they get him to the IR somehow and stash him for another year? Or do they just put him on waivers and hope that he clears and bring him back to the practice squad? I don't know. Maybe an injury or two up in front too could have him help make the team. But I think right now, if everyone stays healthy, Kobe's on the outside looking in.
Yeah. Lowbridge asked in the chat, how does it work if you put them on IR before 53 cut down? Does that keep them out all season but not count against the 53? Dang, I know I've written on this before and had to look it up then, but do you know that rule?
Yeah, so they actually altered the rule last year. So you are allowed to put two players on the IR before the 53-man roster is officially announced, and you can designate them to come back. But it it's very you need these guys usually to make the team. So if they start the training camp season, you don't want them to go on IR after that. Most of the time, that means their season's over. So what you want to do, they'd have to go on the 53 and then. So that's why any guys who are on PUP list right now or NFI or anything like that, you want to leave them on that right now until they're ready to come back. Guys like Curtis Robinson will probably start on PUP list because that keeps those roster spots available. You don't have to make decisions, but the league is getting a little bit nicer when it comes to handling IR situations. So it is now you can do that. I mean, John Feliciano, that happened to last year. They put him on IR. They designated him to come back during the season. And then, of course, he was just never capable of doing it. But a guy that did do that was the defensive tackle, Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis was put on IR after his injury and brought back. That's the first time you were allowed to do that. Before that, it used to just be the end of the road for your season.
Yeah, thanks for. I know that it had changed, and I had to look it up, or I had to get my editor to tell me how that went sometime last year. But I lose track of those rules sometimes. Okay, one more burning question. Wait, actually, no, we have two more, and then I want to make sure that I get to this question that Keys asked earlier. All right, so question number 8. Will Kyle Shanahan find a way to get Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo on the field at the same time? I would love to see this. I know that it's not something that he's done really. I mean, I think I remember seeing a play or two that Elijah Mitchell was on the field at the same time as Christian McCaffrey, but I don't know why they don't have any, I'm not saying that they have to be in the backfield, and like Guerendo lead blocking like Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, Bill Walsh did it with Roger Craig and Wendell Tyler. The Raiders back in the 90s did it with Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson. I mean, you have two Heisman Trophy winners in the backfield. You ought to have them in there at the same time or find a way to do that. And so I think that Kyle Shanahan's creative enough and sharp enough that I think that he could figure it out, put one of them in motion or split one of them out or something. But I'd love to see that. Now, here's my prediction. It won't happen because if it does, maybe it happens like once or twice because Kyle just doesn't seem to like to go away from what he does. What do you think about this? Would this be a good idea, or is it just something that I don't understand why it wouldn't work?
Oh, no, I think it is. I think it's a good idea. And we've seen Kyle Shanahan put dual halfbacks in the backfield together all the way back to 2021, 2022. We've seen Jeff Wilson Jr. back there with Elijah Mitchell. Then we've seen Elijah Mitchell with Christian McCaffrey. This is something that they do. What it all hinges on is how defenses are going to respond to that personnel grouping. Kyle Shanahan does everything about how he feels a defense will respond and getting a favorable matchup for him. I think it is unique to have Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo in the backfield together. And I think it could be really smart for the 49ers to do this early on in the season when you are going to be missing some of your weapons at wide receiver. Why not get an opportunity to get a defense to declare those two guys as running backs and then do something else? Now, one of the problems with this is I do believe that teams, when they don't have Kyle Juszczyk on the field, a lot of times are looking at the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, as a wide receiver, and they will go to their nickel look. But if you have a runner like Isaac Guerendo, maybe you could still run the ball with him in the backfield and split Christian McCaffrey out. So I think there's some options here. I do think that this is a look the 49ers will have happen during the season because I do think it creates some opportunities where teams are going to have to put their nickel or their base 4-3 out there, depending. And whatever you get, you got a favorable matchup that you like. So I think this one will happen. It's in Kyle Shanahan's playbook because we've seen it several times. In fact, if you go back, I can remember the plays exactly. It was Elijah Mitchell or Jeff Wilson Jr. going in motion and hitting a edge defender while the other running back ran the ball. And they did this with Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey in 2022. So this type of thing can happen. I just think it could even be adjusted a little bit more to get some favorable looks for Christian McCaffrey in space.
Yeah, that would be fun. Lowbridge asked, can they use Garindo in some of the Debo packages? I mean, of course they can. He's just a different type of player. Debo's a bowling ball, and Garindo's a little more upright, little taller. At least that's how it looks like he runs to me. But um, I don't know. I think that because I heard Larry Krueger. I think it was Larry Krueger say that they should use Malik Knowles in that Debo role. There's only one Debo. The rest of the NFL has been trying to find the next Debo, and so far nobody has.
Yeah, that's the thing with Garindo and even with Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's probably the closest to Debo with the versatility. Is he still a running back first, wide receiver second? What made Debo great was he was a wide receiver first, running back second, but he could run like a running back. He's got crazy versatility. And I don't even think Isaac Garindo's as good as Debo in the open field, in open space. So the screens, the jet sweeps, I don't think that those things really play to his strengths very much. I think Garindo's a really good running back who has the ability to take a whole shot. I don't believe there is a guy on the 49ers roster or in this league that is Debo Samuel role for the 49ers. I think this role has completely changed now. Kyle Shannon's got to go a different direction. But there'll be some things, right, that you'll see from different players that remind you of Debo, the quick screens, the jet sweeps. But I think it's going to be a variety of different players doing it.
All right, last question before we get to Key's question here. Will Kyle Juszczyk have a bigger impact in 2025? When I think of using McCaffrey and Garindo in the backfield, obviously they would use them differently than they would use Kyle Juszczyk when he's in, although they do send him out, to catch some balls from time to time. I don't know. I like Kyle Juszczyk, and I'm all in favor of using the fullback. I just don't know that his impact is going to be any bigger than it's been in the past. To me, he's not quite the player that he was. He's still really good, but the 8 consecutive Pro Bowls is just a little misleading. And I love Kyle Juszczyk, so I'm not trashing him. But he's one of the only fullbacks in the league, which makes me think that's one of the reasons why he's been to 8 consecutive Pro Bowls. I don't know. What are you thinking about this? I guess my bold prediction on that would be no. He's not going to be any better. His impact's not going to be bigger this season.
I think it's going to be bigger than last season. I do believe that. I think that the 49ers are going to go to a little bit more play action than they've been running. And I think one of the ways that really benefits Kyle Juszczyk is that means the 49ers probably need to be in 21 personnel a little bit more. I think it makes sense for the 49ers to be in more 21 personnel and 12 personnel early in the season, especially if you're not going to have all your wide receivers. And I think that Juszczyk is kind of lost in the shuffle sometimes, but the 49ers also don't have another tight end that can catch the ball as well as George Kittle. So using Kyle Juszczyk in passing situations, in flood patterns, as you're moving the pocket and play action, I think there's going to be some opportunities for him there. So I think that, yeah, he's going to have more opportunities. I think he could even be more of a red zone threat this year out of the backfield. I think it's going to be a slight uptick for him. And I think the part of the reason is one thing we've heard the 49ers talk about is we need to get those linebackers to engage on the run game, and the run game didn't go well last year. Well, one way you do that is you make them think it's a run. No better way to make them think it's a run than Kyle Juszczyk being on the field. And so they got to get those linebackers to engage on the run, and those safeties, like we talked about earlier in the episode, to run with Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins. And then it creates that huge void for Pearsall, Jennings, and Kittle, and even McCaffrey over the middle of the field to make plays. So I think it's a little bit of an uptick for him. I don't think it's going to be a large uptick. I don't think this is the 2017 usage of Juszczyk or 2018 or even 2019, but I think maybe a little bit more, maybe 5% more than we saw over the last couple of years. And I think that could help him a lot. Maybe he'll have some more opportunities to make plays as kind of a return to Swiss Army knife with no Debo Samuel on the team.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Debo Samuel thing, that could be true. And also, the 49ers are at their best when they're using a lot of misdirection, when they're using a lot of play action, and using Kyle Juszczyk in some of those aspects of the game. I think that I would agree that I think that probably they were so successful and so explosive in 2023 that they got away from some of that, especially maybe the play action part of that, um, because this was the best running game in the NFL. It was the most creative running game, and it really hasn't been that way. I mean, McCaffrey was great in 2023, and so I'm certainly not saying that it wasn't the same that season, but it wasn't quite like it was from a running standpoint. Say 2019 when Raheem Mostert was going off like he was. That's just my way of seeing it. But I kind of agree that they need to go back to that run heavy. There was I know I wrote on this it's probably been a few years ago that when the 49ers ran the ball more than they threw it, and this was before 2023, when they ran the ball more than they threw it, they won. I don't even remember the percentages, but an extremely high percentage of their games, like high 80s, 90%. When they threw more than they passed, it was low. And so back then it was clear, if you want to win the game, 49ers, you've got to run the ball. Now, 2023, I haven't looked to see, how that balanced out, but certainly it seems like they threw more, but maybe they didn't. It's just that the passing game was more explosive that season. That's probably more true, I'm guessing. But yeah, I definitely think that they need to get back to that, especially with a young defense that's learning. They need to try and keep the other offense off the field as much as they can.
Yeah, time of possession is a huge element to this, and you want a fresh defense rushing, the quarterback. And so I do believe that this is going to be a huge focus for the 49ers this year, is reestablishing that run game. Not only does that help you, between the 30s, but also when you get inside the red zone, being able to score. Let's not forget, in 2023, the 49ers scored touchdowns at over a 68%, which was number one in the NFL. Last year, the run game suffered, and so did the red zone offense. So I do believe it's a return to that. I think it's also going to go a long ways in taking some of the pressure off the 49ers offensive line when you can move the pocket. That makes it so you don't have traditional pass sets, which are more difficult for some of the 49ers offensive linemen to be able to hold into. So it's a kind of a point to make everyone a little bit better. It really works for Kyle Shanahan's offense. So I think that they return to this. And I think Kyle Juszczyk, he's still not going to be on the field as much as he was in the past. It's still not going to be the 2019 workload or anything like that, but just a small uptick, a little bit more of the running game. And I do believe that they were in shotgun and 11 personnel a lot more last year than they're going to be in 2025. I think there's going to be some of that, and a lot of that's a testament to Brock Purdy's ability, but especially with some of the things they're going to have to do, working through George Kittle, working through McCaffrey early in the season, it just makes more sense to be running play action early on.
All right, let's get to this last question from Keys. He asked, should the Niners run Brock a little bit more and do more RPOs, especially early in the year with no Ayuk and Robinson and Kyle not being able to feed Debo more? So I'm not, if we're talking like how Jim Harbaugh used Colin Kaepernick, then no, I don't think that that Brock Purdy needs to be running more. I think he's really good at dropping back to pass, and when he doesn't see anything there, he takes off. Even then, during the regular season, I'd like to see him not do that too much because he needs to stay healthy. Now in the playoffs, yeah, lay it all out on the line, but I don't want to see him get hit any more than he already is going to.
I think it's completely situational. You have a situation where you have 3rd and 1, and you think that you can get Brock Purdy on the edge where he can get out, to the sideline safely and slide down. I'm okay with that. I don't think I want to see too many design runs for Brock Purdy, but I don't have a problem with Brock Purdy creating, being able to get outside the pocket, get some extra first downs, use his legs to extend plays. I'm all for those, but I think there's so many of those for Brock during the game that I don't want to add to it very much. So one or two plays here or there, I don't think that's a big problem, but I wouldn't want to design run game too much for him. But I thought it was a good question for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Keys mentioned here in the chat, Brock did zone read in college and was pretty good. Yeah, I'm sure he was. It's just in the NFL, they're a lot bigger and faster, and they hit harder. We just don't want him. I don't want him taking unnecessary hits, but I'm sure he would be great at it. Hey, that's all that we have today for the Red and Bold Show. Again, we won't be here next weekend. I'm going to be out of town, but in 2 weeks, we'll be back. And by that time, we'll be gearing up for, I guess the 49ers training camp would have already started by that time. So we'll have a lot to talk about at that point. Ant, thanks. It was great as always. Everybody make sure that you like and subscribe both channels. And you can follow Ant at 49ers Cutback. You can follow me at 49ers Camelot. We would appreciate it. Appreciate your love and your time. It's been fun. So let's jump into this, man. It's training camp time. Let's do this.